Hello Oscar, Grandpa here. Lots of love from me and from Granny and everybody else I can think of. That's to you and your little sister Annabelle, and Mummy and Daddy of course too, and lots of love too from Moosey. You been good, Moosey? Yeah, I've been good. Yep. And hope you're having a lovely time and seen some lovely photos. Great skating and jumping, Oscar. I thought your skating now is really improving, and lovely to see Annabelle too making a start. I think she was sitting down, don't you, more than she was standing up, but good try anyway. So we were reading about Mr. Topsy-Turvy, and we got part way through it, and he, if you remember, he caused a big fuss going round town. And he took a taxi from the hotel, but he confused the taxi driver, and the poor man drove straight into a traffic light. Isn't that terrible? And then he went into a big department store in the middle of town, and he walked up to one of the counters. "I'd like a pair of socks," he said to the lady behind the counter. Sorry, he said, "I'd like a sock of pears." "You mean a pair of socks?" She smiled and showed him a pair of bright red socks. Mr. Topsy-Turvy put them on his hands. Silly Billy. And then he tried to leave, but being Mr. Topsy-Turvy, he tried to walk down the up escalator, and all the people who were going up the elevator, all fell over themselves. It was a terrible topsy-turvy jumble. Look at everybody falling over. That's really sad. So that day, Mr. Topsy-Turvy did all sorts of topsy-turvy things. He walked backwards across a street crossing and caused an enormous traffic jam. Oh dear, silly Mr. Topsy-Turvy. He went to a library and put all the books upside down on the shelves and made everybody extremely cross. Then he went to an art gallery and insisted on hanging all the pictures upside down so that he could look at them properly. So there's an upside down picture. Oh dear. And then after Mr. Topsy-Turvy had been in the town for just one day, do you know what happened, Oscar? He disappeared. Nobody knew how he went or where he went, but he certainly went because he wasn't there anymore. The whole town breathed a sigh of relief. There's all the people in the town, obviously very happy. But what the town discovered, even though Mr. Topsy-Turvy had left, was that everything was still topsy-turvy. "Read all about it," shouted the newspaper sellers read all it about. I can't say this correctly. "Read all it about," shouted the newspaper sellers instead of shouting, "Read all about it." "News is the here," said the television news reader instead of saying, "Here is the news." "Morning good," people started saying to each other when they met, and do you how instead of how do you do. Everybody was talking topsy-turvy, including the man reading the news on the television. Can you think of something to say that's topsy-turvy? Go on, Oscar. What can you say that's topsy-turvy? Mummy and Daddy something, or good are Mummy and Daddy. How about that? Anyway, I'm sure you've got some ideas. So we're gonna. I think we finished the Mr. Men stories, but we've got in very similar series. We've got some other books, and this one is called Chirp. So who do you think Chirp is? Chirp could be a sort of bird from Timbuktu. Chirp was a sort of bird, a Timbuktu bird. He lived in Featherbed Cottage, high up on the branch of a tree in Timbuktu. There's his house on the tree. This was a bit awkward for Chirp because, you see, he couldn't fly. He knew he was supposed to fly, but he couldn't. He'd never learned how to. Mind you, he tried. He stood outside Featherbed Cottage and shut his eyes and jumped. There he is, standing outside Featherbed Cottage. And he jumped. What do you think happened, Oscar? Crash. Oh dear. No, he's gone straight into the ground with his beak. Poor Chirp. He went to see his friend Oink. Oink was a sort of pig. There is Chirp with Oink, who of course is wearing a top hat. "Oh, I wish I could fly," said Chirp to Oink, "but I don't know how." Well, said Oink, thinking, if I wanted to fly, I'd flap my ears. But I don't have any ears, said Chirp. And anyway, pigs aren't supposed to fly. Oink thought again. Well, he said at last, for he was a slow-thinking pig, I think you're supposed to flap something. There he is, look, he's a bit slow. That's Oink the pig. Come on. So Oink and Chirp went back to Featherbed Cottage. Chirp climbed up the ladder to his front door. He'd always been a bit ashamed of that ladder. He stood on the branch, so he can't fly up. Chirp can't fly up to his house on the branch. He has to climb a ladder because he can't fly. Come on, cried Oink. Try flapping your legs. Chirp shut his eyes and flapped his legs and jumped. There he is, shutting his eyes and jumping. So what happens next? Crash! Poor Chirp. Yeah, great big bounce on the ground. Oh dear, said Oink, flapping your legs didn't work, did it? Chirp groaned. Tell you what, went on slow-thinking Oink, I'll go home and come back tomorrow when I've had time to think what it is you're supposed to flap for you to fly. So there's Oink, who's saying, I'll see you tomorrow, because he's a bit slow, isn't he? Poor Chirp climbed slowly back up his ladder and sat in a chair in Featherbed Cottage, feeling very sorry for himself. A tear trickled down his cheek. Oh dear, he sighed. Oh dear, there's Chirp with a tear. I wish I could fly. The following day was bright and sunny, and Chirp was up bright and early, waiting for his friend Oink. He saw him coming through the woods. Hello, shouted Chirp. Hello, Oink. And waved both his arms. He waved his arms to greet Oink. So what do you think is going to happen, Oscar? Hello, Chirp, Oink shouted back. I've got it. I know what you're supposed to flap for you to fly. Chirp was so excited to hear this, he kept on waving his arms and jumped up and down on the branch. In fact, he was so excited. There's Oink, look, knowing what's going to happen, but I don't think he does. In fact, Chirp was so excited, do you know what? He fell off. There he is, falling off the branch. He fell off, and what do you think happened, Oscar? And because he was still waving to Oink, guess what happened? That's right, he was flying, wee, he cried, wee. And he flew through the air. That's a lovely story, isn't it? You were saying, he called down to Oink. Yes, shouted out Oink in great excitement. I was saying that I know what you're supposed to flap for you to fly. And what's that? Cried Chirp as he flapped his arms and flew through the air. So what's Oink going to say, Oscar? Your beak, shouted Oink. You're supposed to flap your beak. No, that's not right, is it, Oink? Isn't that, Oscar? Oh, that was Chirp. That's a great story. So we'll read you now Hiss. Hiss is another story. So Hiss is a sort of snake from Timbuktu. Hiss was a sort of snake, a Timbuktu snake. There he was. There he is, look. He lived in a snake hole, which is a little bit like a wormhole, except it's for snakes, in Timbuktu. There we are, have another look at him. Yep, he's a very smart snake, isn't he? He's got a collar and tie on. Hiss was a funny sort of a snake, not only because he wore a collar and tie, but because of the way he went around, not crawling like snakes are supposed to. Look, he's sitting in his armchair. Isn't that funny? I don't know. Excuse me. Hiss hopped. Hiss hopping was a sight to see. The only problem was that if you're a snake, excuse me, hopping around all day, hurts your tail. There he is, hopping around. One day Hiss was out for his afternoon stroll. Sorry, his afternoon hop. He met Croak, also out for his afternoon hop. Croak was a sort of frog, a Timbuktu frog. Oh dear. Hopping hurts my tail, complained Hiss. Frogs hop, said Croak. Snakes crawl. But I can't crawl, said Hiss. I've never learned how to. If you can't crawl, said Croak, take a taxi. a not very helpful remark from Croak. Hiss hopped on. He met Woof out for his afternoon walk. Woof was a sort of dog, a Timbuktu dog. Hopping hurts my tail, complained Hiss. Dogs walk, said Woof. Snakes crawl. There's Woof. Can't, replied Hiss. Can't crawl, said Woof. Can't catch a bus. A not very helpful remark. Oh dear. Woof wasn't helping, was he? Hiss hopped on. He met Trumpet, out for his afternoon plod. Trumpet was a sort of elephant, a Timbuktu elephant. Hopping hurts my tail, complained Hiss. Elephants plod, said Trumpet. Snakes crawl. There's the elephant. Oh dear, poor Plod. What's going to happen? Can't, replied Hiss. Can't crawl, said Trumpet. Buy a car. Another not very helpful remark. There's the elephant. Oh dear, isn't that funny? Plod the elephant. Hiss hopped on. He met Neigh, out for his afternoon trot. Neigh was a sort of horse. There he is. Neigh was a sort of horse with big boots on. A Timbuktu horse. Hopping hurts my tail, complained Hiss. Horses trot, said Neigh. Snakes crawl. Can't, replied Hiss. Can't crawl, said Neigh. Go by train. Yet another not very helpful remark. Neigh is laughing away there. I don't know. So what do you think happens next, Oscar? Poor Hiss hopped home. He curled up in his favourite armchair to think. It's no use, he thought to himself. I'll have to learn. And he went outside to try to learn how to crawl. And there he is, sat in his armchair, not very happy because he doesn't know how to crawl. But try as he would, he couldn't. And the more he tried, the more he couldn't. Oh dear, he sighed, whatever am I to do? Then he had an idea. Look, he's trying to crawl, but he can't. He had an idea, a brilliant idea. Wow, what's that, I wonder? And now Hiss gets around in no time at all. And his tail doesn't hurt from hopping anymore. And he's very happy about that. Can you guess just how Hiss gets around? He's looking very pleased, isn't he? How do you think he gets around, Oscar? He rolls. That's right. He rolls. Look, just like a cartwheel. Instead of going for a walk, which he can't, and instead of going for a crawl, which he can't, and instead of going for a hop, which hurts, do you know what he does? He simply turns himself into a circle and goes for a roll. Very clever, isn't he? If you went to Timbuktu, Oscar, you'd see Hiss out for his afternoon roll. Isn't that a lovely story? So we've read about Hiss and Chirp, and we finished Mr. Topsy-Turvy. And so I'm going to say bye-bye now, Oscar and Annabelle, if you're listening, and to Mummy and Daddy, and hope you're having a fun time. And it's bye-bye from me and from Granny. Lots of love to you all. And bye-bye from Moosey as well. So lots of love, Oscar. Take care. I'll be reading to you soon. Bye.